So I want to talk about what all these marks mean between 0 and 1. Did you do the Campus Clear app? Okay, download that, please, and then log into that. So this is 1 inch, right? And I'm going to pass out a paper and then a practice sheet. We're going to talk about how that inch is split up. And this is, I'll give you my spiel about why I hate the English system. We're the only country in the world that uses the system. Everybody else uses the metric system, which I could explain in 10 minutes. This takes me in over an hour. Okay. Do you know how to get into Blackboard? Why don't you take one of the computers in the back corner and get into Blackboard and log into your to the site. What's your name?
Matthew.
And Matthew, what are you studying? Okay, you have to take one that doesn't have a red sign on it. You don't know? You're just exploring?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I want to do first is on that first paper, maybe I can just put the paper under here. On this paper here, at the top, this is my inch broken down a little bit bigger. So what I want, and I want you to fill it out as we go through it. So if this is 0 inches and this is 1 inch, I just blowed this up. So what would this one be right here? Be a 1/2 inch, right? So what would halfway between 0 and a 1/2 inch be? And I got to redo this with my spacing better, but what would that one be? 1/4 inch. So what would halfway between 1/2 and 1 inch be? 3/4. Okay, so now halfway between 0 and 1/4 is what? 1/8, yep. And halfway between 1/2 and 1/4 and 1/2? 3/8. Do you guys understand that? 3/8. And halfway between, somebody else now. Olivia, halfway between 1/2 and 3/4 is what? No, 3/4 is a 6/8. 5/8. How about how about halfway between 3/4 and 1 inch? Alan. Yeah. This one right here. 7/8. Notice the numerator or the denominator, the top number is always an odd number. Do you see that? Okay, so Ayana, what between the 0 and 1/8? What's that tick mark right there? 16th. And then we're going to just do odd numbers. We're going to do 3/16, 5/16, 7/16, 9/16. So I want you to fill all these in. 11/16, 13/16, and 15/16. Does this, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's always pencils and pens up here. Doesn't have an eraser.
That's fine, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's important to understand how an inch is broken into. And you guys know that 1/4 is the same as 2/8, and an 1/8 is the same as 2/16. So you can simplify fractions. we'll do some exercises on adding fractions over the semester. And if you guys are in carpentry and plumbing, they're going to go over adding fractions. And if you're in codes, prints, and spec reading, they're going to go over that. So let's see. Mateo, what is 3/4? How many 16ths is 3/4?
How many 16ths is 3/4?
Yeah. So it's the same as 12/16. So we're going to talk about how to simplify fractions, because if you're dealing with inches, which we are in this country, in any trade that we're in, we have to learn how to add and multiply fractions. And you always want to save something to the lowest common denominator. So if you didn't know, you could count. You could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8/16 is the same as a half. 9, 10, 11, 12/16. So this is kind of critical. You guys, are you understand? What's that?
This is very important.
It's very important.
See, all by an inch is half an inch.
By a quarter inch.
Yeah, quarter inch.
Your kitchen cabinets won't fit.
I've been through that before.
Yep. It's so understanding this is really important. Measure, measure, measure. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the scale. So the scale that we have is 3-sided, and it's got 11 scales on it, because this one is the full scale. And see where it says 16 right there? That doesn't mean it's 1/16 of an inch equals a foot. That means it's an inch broken down into 1/16 of an inch. So that, whenever I say full scale, that's the scale that you're going to use, the one that looks just like a regular ruler. Okay. We're not going to use for this class the 3/32 or the 3/16. But you notice that 3/32 is half the scale of the 3/16. And that's going to be true for all the scales. So let's flip to the one that has 1/8 and 1/4. So what this is for every 1/8 of an inch, this is an 1/8 inch from here to here, that equals a foot. So if I have a scale that's 1/8 of an inch equals a foot, this is what you'd use. And then at the other end is the quarter. A 1/4 inch equals a foot. And from between 0 and the end of the scale is that measurement broken down into inches and or fractions of an inch. So this is a full foot right here, and this is a full foot right here, just at different scales. And they share the same scale. So the small number is the small, so here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. They mark number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if I go to the large scale, they've marked the 2. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They do this so that you can share the same, so I don't have to have multiple scales. Yep. We call this a scale because we're scaling something down. So it's called a scale ruler. Yeah. Does that make sense how they're sharing back and forth?
Yeah.
And if you look at the one down below, the 1 inch shares with the 1/2 inch. And the 1/2 inch is the smaller one, so it's going to be the smaller ticks. So here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And on this one, we go 0, and it's a bigger number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, on. And that will be true for all of them. Now what we want to do is we want to look at each scale, and we're going to decide what, we're going to start with the 1/8 inch scale. It's got all these little marks. This is a whole foot between here and here. And we want to know what's the closest we can measure to at that scale. And we know that this is 12 inches from here to here. When I give you a line to measure, you can only be as accurate as the scale ruler is. And so the smaller the scale gets, the less accurate you can be. If you're drawing on the computer can be as accurate as you tell it to be. But when we're measuring by hand or drawing by hand, we're limited by what our eyes can see. So you can see these lines are pretty close together in the 1/8 inch. So if this is 0, this is 12, what's the big line in the middle then? It'd be 6 inches, right? And how many lines are between the 0 and the 6 inches? How many ticks?
2.
2. So what would each tick represent then?
8 and 10.
Eighth of it, eighth.
No, we go 0 to 6 here. So I'm here, I'm at 0 inches, here I'm at 6 inches. Where am I at the first tick? 2. So it goes 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So what I want you to do on the bottom of that paper is at 1/8 inch, we can measure to the nearest 2 inches. And you're going to want to keep this paper handy.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, can you say the next thing you said about the 1/8, and then I'm not.
So the 1/8, so this is 12 inches right here at an 1/8 inch scale. So that means this is 6 inches. There's 2 more ticks, so that means the first one is 2 inches, 4 inches, 6 inches.
Okay.
Do you see why I wanted you guys here today?
Yeah.
Is this gonna be recorded on?
Yep, it is being recorded. So you're now immortalized, Ayana. That's okay. This is my speaker, and it picks up the whole classroom. So does that make sense? So when I give you a line to measure at 1/8 inch scale, if it was 8 feet 4 inches, and you told me 8 foot 6 inches, I'd say, that's close enough because it's real. The lines are really close together. If you told me it was 8 foot 5 inches, you got the assignment wrong because you can't measure closer than 2 inches. Does that make sense?
Okay, so each one's at 2 inches.
Okay, for the 1/8 inch. Now let's go to the other end of the scale and look at the 1/4 inch. So here's 0 and here's 12, right? There's a lot more ticks in here. So what's this one right here, the halfway?
6.
Halfway is always going to be 6 inches. So what you would want to do is look for 6 inches, and then if there's 3 inches, which there was not on the 2 inch scale. So then this is 3 inches and this is 9 inches, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if this, so 0, 3, 6, 9, 12. Between the 0 and the 3, there's 2 more ticks. So what would each tick represent?
1 and 2.
1 inch, yep. Now I want to go to the 3/8 inch scale. We're going to do 3/8 and 3/4 at the same time. So if I'm at 3/8 inch scale, 3/8 shares with the 3/4, which is the bigger scale. Which is the bigger scale here?
Yeah. 3/4.
The 3/4. So the 3/8 is going to be the small numbers. 3/8 is going to be the small numbers. So if I'm looking at 3/8 inch scale, I can see 0, 3, 6, 9, 12, right? Do you see that?
Yeah.
Do you have a scale? Well, you need to speak up. So can anybody tell me what the first tick after the 0 represents on the 3/8 inch scale? An inch. Oh, that's better, isn't it? Because there's 2 ticks between 0 and 3, so each one represents an inch. So I'm going to write in 1 inch next to the 3/8 inch scale. Now I'm going to go to the 1/2 inch scale. So the 1/2 inch shares the scale with the 1 inch. And at 1/2 inch scale, you can see we've got 0, this is 12 inches, always is 12 inches. So I can find 3, 6, 9, 12, right? Does everybody see that?
Okay, yeah.
So between the 0 and the 3, all of a sudden we have a few more ticks. So I know that this is 1 and 2. So what's the first tick after the 0?
Half an inch?
1/2 an inch. So do you see how I'm doing this? First I'm finding the 6, then I'm finding the 3, then if I can, I'm finding the 1 and the 2. So as the scales get bigger, we can be more accurate because we can see. All right, now I want to go to the 3/4 inch scale, which shares with the 3/8. And again, I've got 12 inches here. So I know that this is 3, 6, 9, 12, right? So here's 3 inches. So this has to be 1 and 2, the slightly longer ones. And then if this is 1 inch, what's that one? Half an inch. So again, I'm going to write half an inch down. I have a couple videos we're going to watch too that just will reinforce all of this. Then I want to go to the 1 inch scale. And at the 1 inch scale, it's getting bigger. So they're able to mark where 0, 3, 6, and 9 are for us. And this would be 12 at the end. So here's 0 and 3. So here's 1, here's 2. So between the 0 and the 1, how many ticks are there?
3.
There's 3. So what does each tick represent then?
4.
1/4 of an inch. And if you didn't know about that, you'd go, okay, I know that's 1 inch. That's a half inch. And then I've got between the 0 and the half inch, I've got another tick. So that has to be 1/4 inch. So we're going back to what this scale up here refers to. So we're measuring to the nearest 1/4 inch. Okay, at 1 1/2, this is where it gets really tricky. So 1 1/2 shares with the 3 inch scale. This is a scale we use for detailed drawings. Like if we were going to do a special detail of the trim around. We might even do it at full scale sometimes, but we would use a larger scale when we want to see all the special details in there. So let's do half inch first. It's telling us where the 0, 3, 6, 9, and I know this is 12 is, right? So if this is 3, I know that this is 1 and this is 2. So if this is 1, this is a half, and what's the first tick? 1/4. Yep. Now, this is where people make the biggest mistakes on. So this is the small number. This 2 is a bigger number. That refers to the 3 inch at the other end of the scale. So here we're at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if we're at the 3 inch scale, here's 0, here's 1, then 2. So you can't do many feet measuring with the 3 inch scale. This is the end of the 1 1/2 would actually be 3 feet at the 3 inch scale. So when I get to the 3 inch scale, it's big enough now, it can tell me where every single number is. So I've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 12 is the last one. So between 0 and 1, this is a half. What's this one right here? Halfway between a half and 0. 1/4. And there's one more tick, right? So what is that? 1/8 inch. And if you go back and look at my sheet I had you fill out, make sure you write all this down. You'll see that we went from 2 to 1, 1, 1/2, 1/2, 1/4, 1/4, 1/8. So we got more accurate as time went on. Does that make sense? Okay. You're going to want to keep this in your binder. Then I gave you a practice sheet that says measure each line at the appropriate scale. I'm going to show you how to measure the line, a line, and then I want you to practice measuring that line. I'm going to draw a separate line over here and measure it. So if I have a line that I want to measure, I'll do it on the back of the paper so I don't confuse you guys. I'm going to draw a few lines. So if I have a line that I want to measure, it doesn't matter if I start my measurement at the right or the left edge because it'd still be the same. So let's start with 1/4 inch. So what I want to do is I put my scale, and I like putting it above the line so I don't have to lean over my scale to see what it's saying. I put it above the line. I line up the 0 with the end of the line. You want to make sure you're really right at the 0. And on this one, I'm the bigger numbers, so I know I'm between 14 and 15. I'm just a tad over 14 feet. So then I slide the 14 feet back and I get 1 inch. And I know that each tick is 1 inch because of that paper I just did. So above the line on the left-hand side, I would write 14 feet, 1 inch. Next line I'm going to do at 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to put my scale with the 0 lining up with the end of the line. And then can you tell me what feet I'm between on this one? The 3/8 is the smaller scale, so it's the smaller numbers.
8, 9,
Between 8 and 9. So this is 8, 9, 10. So I'm between 8 and 9 feet. So then I would slide the 8 over, and I would count back the inches. Now, what does each tick at the 3/8 inch scale represent?
3/8 is an inch.
An inch. So I am right at 6 inches. So I would write 18 feet dash 6 inches. And if it was a 0 inches, I would write 18 feet dash 0 inches. So it's always the feet dash inches. The last one I'm going to do the 3/8 inch scale, or the 3 inch scale. So this is really a tiny one. So I'm going to line up my 0. I'm going to line up my 0. Here's 1 foot way over here. So I'm not hitting any feet. So I'm going to pull it back, and I'm going to see that I'm somewhere between 2 and 3 inches. And if I look, here's a 1/2 inch. I'm between a 1/2 inch and 3 inches. And I'm actually at 2. What does each tick represent at 3 inch scale? An 8. So if you can't count it, you can count. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6/8 or 3/4 inches. So in this one, I would write 0 feet, 2 3/4 inches. So you write 0 feet and you write 0 inches. Okay? So what I want you to do is take this paper. This is just practice. We are going to have a homework that'll be due on Thursday with measuring, but I want you to spend a few minutes. Actually, let me stop my recording.